The Galactic Council's envoy appeared, his features sharp and gaze condescending as he transmitted his message across the communications grid to Earth's leaders. His words rang with the detached authority of a civilization that believed itself untouchable. In acknowledgement of your place within this galaxy, you are summoned to deliver tribute to the Galactic Council. Failure to comply will be seen as an act of hostility and swiftly met with consequences beyond your comprehension. On the other side of the transmission, Earth's leaders sat in a tense silence, listening intently as the demand unfolded. They were careful to keep their faces neutral, expressions set, hiding the brewing anger and shock at this affront. A high-ranking official finally responded, his tone measured, offering a vague acknowledgement of the demand. "We will consider this request and deliberate accordingly," he said, with only the faintest edge of contempt beneath his polite facade. The envoy's eyes narrowed slightly, sensing the tone, but he dismissed it. Humans were known to be unpredictable, prone to emotional outbursts and acts of resistance, though ultimately ineffective against the Council's might. He concluded the message with a final, thinly veiled threat, and the transmission ended abruptly. When the screen went dark, the room burst into murmurs. Some officials were visibly seething, while others looked as if they could hardly believe the audacity of the demand. It had been clear from the start that humanity was viewed as little more than an upstart species, beneath the notice of the galactic powers, that is, until this demand for tribute. It was not respect they had been shown, but dominance disguised as diplomacy. Earth had been reduced, in the eyes of the Council, to a world destined to serve, to pay homage like countless other conquered planets. In a smaller, private chamber, a group of Earth's top leaders gathered around a central table, their faces set in grim determination. This was no ordinary meeting. They were not here to debate compliance but to devise a response that would resonate across the stars. Voices were low but intense, each remark tinged with anger and pride as they discussed their strategy. One leader spoke up, her voice steely. "They think we're just another weak planet, easy to subjugate. They have no idea what we're capable of, how hard we'll fight to protect our autonomy." Another leader, a former military strategist, nodded. "We need to make a statement, something they won't easily forget. This can't be just another reluctant tribute. We need to send a message." Ideas flowed, sharp and unyielding, until one proposal settled over the room like a heavy shadow, met with nods of grim approval. This demand would be answered, but not in the way the Council expected. As the leaders conferred, intelligence agents provided reports that added fuel to the fire. Months earlier, alien mercenaries, agents of the Council, they deduced, had secretly infiltrated Earth. Their attempts to destabilize humanity had been covert, aimed at slowly eroding Earth's defenses and sowing discord, all under the radar. But Earth's intelligence network had intercepted them, and a considerable number had been captured. These mercenaries were now held in undisclosed locations, stripped of their weapons and rank, prisoners in a world they had once sought to subdue. The implications were clear. The Council had already initiated hostilities in secret. Earth's leaders felt justified in preparing a response that would address this unspoken war. The Council's mercenaries, caught, defeated, and entirely at humanity's mercy, would serve as the symbols of Earth's defiance. The final decision was swift, unanimous. They would send the prisoners back, but not as living captives. Each one would be returned to the Council as a severed head, carefully preserved and labeled with a message. It was a brutal plan, calculated and defiant, designed to convey the reality that Earth was no one's underling. The Council would not see tribute or submission, they would witness the price of underestimating humanity. The preparations began immediately. Teams of specialized operatives were assigned to the task, working with precision to ensure that the message was unmistakable. Each severed head was placed in an individual crate, preserved to keep the aliens' features recognizable. Encrypted messages were carefully inserted alongside each one, detailing how the captured alien had failed in their attempt to infiltrate and weaken Earth. Every crate was a testament to the mercenaries' defeat, a calculated insult to the Council's arrogance. Earth's leaders worked in absolute secrecy, driven by a sense of purpose and a simmering fury over the Council's attempt to undermine their world. Security around the captured prisoners tightened as top officials moved quickly to finalize the details of their plan. Within locked rooms, specialists pored over data on each captured alien operative, reviewing their backgrounds, skills, and records of subversive activity. Every piece of information reinforced the feeling that this tribute wasn't just a response to the Council's arrogance, but a necessary retaliation for the attacks that had already begun against humanity, veiled and unspoken. In dark, secure facilities hidden from public view, the prisoners remained unaware of the fate that awaited them. These mercenaries were hardened fighters, some hailing from the Council's most ruthless member races, all trained to subdue, conquer, or infiltrate. But they hadn't expected Earth's resilience, the layers of counterintelligence that had quietly tracked their movements, and the methods that had efficiently contained each one of them. Now, they were mere pieces of a message that would be conveyed in the starkest possible terms. Earth's leaders were determined to make every detail count, from the moment the Council opened the crates to the second they understood the full scope of the response. Each crate, they decided, would be meticulously prepared and filled with symbolic touches that would convey Earth's resolve without needing a single word spoken. Technicians worked on crafting custom containers, fitting each crate with a reinforced, pressurized seal to keep the contents perfectly preserved during transit. Earth wasn't just sending a shipment, it was sending a statement, a tribute wrapped in layers of strategy, each piece designed to hammer home humanity's unyielding stance. Beyond the preparation of the crates, Earth's best minds labored over the encryption of the messages that would accompany each severed head. The messages weren't lengthy, just a few succinct lines, but each word was carefully chosen to convey Earth's sharp contempt for the Council's perceived superiority. These weren't simply trophies of conquest, they were records of the Council's failures. Each encrypted note detailed the specific mission of the mercenary, what they had attempted on Earth, and how decisively they had been captured. Humanity wanted it clear that these agents were not seen as worthy adversaries but as intruders who had underestimated Earth's capacity to defend itself. As the project took shape, the officials met once again, reviewing the progress. A silent intensity filled the room as they inspected the crates and read through the draft messages, envisioning the scene that would unfold once the Council's representatives opened these tributes. There was a shared understanding that this was more than just an act of defiance. It was a declaration that humanity would not bow, not now and not ever. The officials nodded their approval, exchanging glances that held both pride and anticipation. With everything finalized, they moved to select the envoy who would carry out the delivery. This individual would need to represent Earth's strength, holding an unwavering stance in the heart of the Council's power. After careful deliberation, they chose an experienced diplomat, someone seasoned enough to handle the potential dangers but resolute enough to face the inevitable tension of the mission. The envoy was briefed extensively, every detail laid out, every precaution discussed. This was more than a diplomatic task, it was a display of strength and resolve, a chance to look the Council's members in the eyes, knowing the weight of the message they were about to receive. When the crates were loaded onto the secure transport vessel, a solemn silence fell over the officials watching from the launch platform. They were sending a message of defiance, of unwillingness to accept the Council's place above them in any hierarchy. This was a statement of humanity's right to determine its own fate. As the vessel took off, carrying Earth's tribute to the Council's stronghold, there was a sense of finality, a feeling that humanity had crossed the threshold and would never look back. The leaders returned to their stations, their expressions set, aware that whatever the outcome, humanity had finally asserted its place in the galaxy. Each of them felt the significance of the moment, a point of no return, and the profound weight of their decision. They had prepared every detail, ensured every message was clear, and left nothing to interpretation. Earth's answer to the demand for tribute would be as unmistakable as it was unforgettable. The envoy arrived at the Council's headquarters, his face set in an unbreakable calm as he carried out his mission. The Council's massive central chamber was a place of splendor and intimidation, meant to impress upon visitors the unchallenged dominance of those who held power here. Alien dignitaries watched curiously, their interest piqued by the human's presence and the strange crates he had brought along. Some among them whispered, questioning the worthiness of Earth's tribute, no doubt expecting to see precious resources, unique artifacts, or rare commodities. But the envoy offered no explanations, no small talk, and no apologies. His instructions were simple and his purpose clear. One of the council members, an imposing figure from a high-ranking species, approached the crates, his expression filled with both curiosity and disdain. The envoy stepped forward, maintaining eye contact, and delivered the prepared statement in a steady, composed tone. "This is the tribute humanity sends in answer to your demand. It is the only tribute we deem worthy of your request." He paused, letting the weight of his words linger in the chamber, a slight edge to his tone hinting at the defiance behind them. Without further explanation, he bowed respectfully, turned, and walked away with unhurried steps, his exit signaling both resolve and finality. The council members watched him leave, sensing that something unexpected was about to unfold. As the human departed, the crates were opened by a team of attendants, each one moving carefully but swiftly, eager to unveil the contents. One by one, the lids were lifted, revealing rows of preserved heads, each alien face frozen in a final expression of defeat. The chamber fell into silence as the reality of Earth's tribute sank in. The shock was palpable, the sight of their own agents, mercenaries and spies the council had sent in secret, now returned to them as grim trophies. Every head was marked with a coded message, encrypted and attached securely to each crate, detailing the specific mission each operative had been sent to complete, and the exact means by which they had failed. Council members stared, horrified and enraged, as they read the records of their own covert operations laid bare, their failures catalogued in brutal detail. They hadn't expected resistance, let alone this level of ruthlessness from a world they had deemed inferior. The message was unmistakable. Earth knew of their attempts to weaken humanity from the shadows, had seen through every deceit, and was capable of responding with a chilling efficiency. One council official, visibly rattled, addressed the assembly, his voice faltering as he tried to make sense of what they were witnessing. They've turned our own operatives into symbols," he stammered. "This isn't tribute, it's an insult, a threat." Murmurs of agreement and alarm spread through the chamber. For the first time, the council members felt a creeping sense of vulnerability, something they had never experienced in their dealings with so-called lesser species. This tribute was more than a refusal to submit, it was a declaration that humanity would not be intimidated. Arguments erupted as alien representatives questioned the wisdom of pushing Earth further. Some called for retaliation, for an overwhelming show of force to remind humanity of its place. Others, however, hesitated, disturbed by the implications of the tribute and the sheer audacity it represented. Earth's technological growth, it seemed, was far greater than they had anticipated, and the humans had shown a willingness to act decisively. A growing number of council members began to wonder if a confrontation with humanity would bring risks they had not calculated. In the center of this storm of debate, the council's leader, a figure who rarely spoke, finally raised a hand to silence the assembly. His voice was calm, deliberate, as he addressed the hall. "We underestimated this species," he admitted, his words carrying a weight that stilled the room. "They have shown us that they will not be cowed by our power, and that they are not as vulnerable as we believed. We must consider the possibility that further provocation will yield consequences beyond our control." His statement hung in the air, a sobering acknowledgement that the council was dealing with an unknown factor, a species that would not bend to intimidation. The silence deepened as council members absorbed the leader's words, the unsettling reality settling over them. Earth had sent a message not just of defiance, but of independence, making it clear that humanity would neither bow nor break under pressure. In this moment, the council understood that their demand had been answered, not with compliance, but with a defiant clarity that shattered their assumptions. Earth's tribute had forced them to reevaluate their stance, and for the first time, the thought of a truce rather than domination seemed to edge into the council's collective mind. The silence that fell over the council chamber was heavy, a stunned reaction that lingered long after the human envoy had left. The sight of the crates and their grim contents weighed on each member, an unsettling reminder that they had misjudged this so-called inferior species. Tension simmered as high-ranking representatives whispered among themselves, each voice wavering between indignation and a cautious respect. This was no ordinary refusal. Earth's response was a challenge that left the Council with no easy path forward. As the Council members regained their composure, debates erupted. Some argued for an immediate, punitive strike to demonstrate the consequences of such insolence. The more militaristic factions saw Earth's tribute as a grave insult, one that demanded a swift and devastating show of power. "We cannot allow this level of defiance to go unanswered," one commander insisted, his voice filled with outrage. "To let this stand is to risk other worlds considering rebellion. Earth must be reminded of its place." Yet as these words hung in the air, others spoke up, urging caution. "Perhaps we should reconsider," one diplomatic representative interjected, his voice steady but uneasy. "Earth's technological advancement is progressing at an alarming rate, faster than we accounted for. They captured and eliminated our operatives, after all. We may be underestimating their capabilities." His words were met with a ripple of unease, a recognition of the unknown variables Earth presented. The Council members exchanged looks, each calculating the risks of an escalated conflict with a species that had proven, quite brutally, its refusal to submit. The Council leader sat quietly, his gaze focused, hands steepled in thought. He was not a figure given to haste or bluster, known instead for his strategic mind and careful consideration. After listening to the heated debate, he raised a hand, and the room fell silent, all eyes turning to him. In a measured tone, he addressed the assembly. "Earth has indeed surprised us," he began, his words steady and deliberate. "They have shown us they will not be intimidated. They have rejected our demands not with words but with actions that carry weight. This is a species that will not yield easily, and we must consider the implications of pushing them further." The hall was still, the Council members listening intently. The leader's gaze swept over them, his expression grave. "Our objective has always been to maintain control without unnecessary conflict. Yet humanity has demonstrated an unpredictability and resilience that makes them a potential threat if we attempt to force compliance." He paused, allowing his words to sink in. "They have displayed a capability for swift and calculated responses, something few species have shown under such pressure. We would be wise to consider a different approach." A murmur rippled through the chamber, a mix of reluctance and grudging respect. The Council leader's words carried a weight that none could easily dismiss. To his right, an elder member, known for his pragmatic views, spoke up. "Perhaps there is an opportunity here," he suggested carefully. "Earth's independence may be more valuable than its subservience. If we treat them as equals, as unlikely as that might seem, we might gain an ally rather than an adversary. A species willing to take such a stand could serve as a powerful ally in unforeseen conflicts." The idea was met with varying reactions, some skeptical, others contemplative. But beneath it all was the undeniable truth: Earth had proven itself formidable, and further provocation could bring consequences the Council was not prepared to face. A military strike against Earth would risk not only a costly conflict but also the possibility of other worlds viewing humanity as a symbol of defiance. Earth's response had demonstrated to the galaxy that even the Council's authority was not absolute. As discussions continued, the Council reached an uneasy consensus. The decision would be to open a dialogue with Earth, not as rulers addressing subjects, but as peers recognizing strength in one another. A truce, however hesitant, was preferable to a war that could destabilize the very order the Council sought to maintain. With a solemn gravity, the Council leader stood, signaling the end of the debate. "Let it be understood," he announced, "that Earth is no longer to be considered a subordinate world. They have earned their place in the galaxy by their actions. We will extend an offer of diplomacy, an acknowledgement of their autonomy. This is not submission, it is a recognition of strength." And so a message was prepared, one that would be sent back to Earth, acknowledging humanity's defiance and inviting them into a reluctant but necessary dialogue. For the first time, the Council extended respect to a world they had once dismissed as insignificant. Earth's answer to their demand had shifted the balance of power, proving that strength, whether in defiance or alliance, could reshape even the most established hierarchies. As the message was sent, the council members left the chamber, each grappling with the new reality Earth's actions had forged. The galaxy would remember this day, the day humanity refused to bow and was, in turn, accepted as a force to be reckoned with.